Hey, welcome back to Stay Tuned with Mikey and Chad. I'm Mikey.
I'm Chad.
And we have a good show today. We have Brendan King from 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. He does play-by-play for the South Bend Cubs, for the Indianapolis Indians. Does a lot. He's has done a few games for the Chicago Cubs. And then after him, we'll have Tony Donahue on the show. Talk a little bit about the passing of Robin Miller, an Indianapolis icon, really, and in the racing community, just one of the biggest names out there. So, hope you enjoy. All right, and we have Brendan King right now, who is filling in on the Fan Morning Show weekdays on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Doing a good job, man. And also, how many gigs do you have? I mean, you're doing play-by-play for the South Bend Cubs, doing play-by-play for the Indians. I mean, what all are you doing right now? How do you find time to even sleep?
Well, that's a great question, Mike. I'm not getting a lot of sleep, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a bit of a weird year for sure since COVID. But to answer your question of how many gigs, I think we're getting up to like 6 or 7. But hey, that's exactly what I wanted when I graduated from Butler, and when I came to Indy, that was the ideal goal, of doing as much as possible. But it's been a lot of fun to partner up with KB, who's well deserved of his own show, and he's killing it. So I'm just happy to chip in, and he's the genius football mind. I to be honest with you, I never played football as a kid, so I'm still really learning the game to a masterful level. I mean, like, huge baseball and hockey guy, like I could talk about those things for days, but to have KB to kind of help me out and take me under his wing is huge. But no, for sure, with the fan, had a great time during March Madness. The Indianapolis 500 was cool. So this month has been crazy, but yeah, going back to do South Bend Cubs games has been fun. Filling in with Howard Kellman in the Indians booth is cool too. So yeah, it's been a bit all over, but it's what you dream about in broadcasting.
Sure, man.
You mentioned you graduated from Butler. Where are you originally from? Are you local Indianapolis guy or?
No, I'm a Chicago guy. So I came here in 2013, grew up in the south suburbs, and I was born in the city. My family is kind of dispersed all throughout the country. I do have an aunt that lives in Chesterton, but that was really all the Indiana I had until my dad got his master's at Notre Dame, actually. So went to a bunch of ND football games as a kid, and still love South Bend, obviously, after 2 years there doing baseball. But coming down to Indy, it was really coming in here cold. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
I think there were 2 people from my high school that went to Butler other than me. Yeah. So it was a complete, blank slate. And looking back on that, I'm really glad that happened, because a lot of people from the Chicago suburbs, go to U of I, University of Illinois, or Illinois State. They know everybody from high school. I didn't want that. Like, I really wanted a new opportunity. And it really did work out going to a school like Butler. And, the first year, my freshman year of the basketball team, that was like the transition year, the Brandon Miller year. And then Chris Holtman comes in, and Sweet 16 my senior year. So pretty good timing.
Perfect, man. Yeah, because I was thinking the other day, before we had you on, I was thinking, God, this guy just almost came out of nowhere onto, and I hear you all the time. I honestly, did you used to do the like the Sports Center updates on the Fan? Is that where? Because I remember the name, and then all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, JMV's having you call in and everything. I've had him on the show. I've actually had Kevin Bowen on the show the night before his first real broadcast when he actually got hired. So I like to talk to indie radio guys. Just it's nice to get some insights from them. And like I said, you just came out of nowhere all of a sudden. And you're just like on the morning show. I'm like, who is this guy? But I really, over the past few weeks, I've listened to you, and I really enjoy, what you have to say and your commentary. And it's a great time. You're doing a really good job.
I appreciate that, guys. I really do appreciate that, and like to have that kind of support from people listening is huge, because again, I kind of came in on a blank slate. But to answer your question, I've been back at the Fan every baseball offseason since I graduated. This has just been a really weird time. It's been the first summer I haven't done baseball at a full-time level since 2016. I was in the Cape Cod League in 2016. My first gig out of college, actually, in 2017 was in Boise, Idaho.
Oh, nice.
Short season baseball with the Colorado Rockies organization. Then got hooked down with South Bend, and the rest was history there. But it's been a bit weird because, again, the fan has brought me back from like every October through March every single year. And I've kind of just chipped in where I can, started off like just board hopping and, just running the board, kind of like everybody.
Right.
But then, the pandemic comes and, as you guys know, Bob Lovell on Indiana Sports Talk, he takes his summer break. They needed somebody to host during the summer of 2020, and they came to me and asked if I could do it. I said, absolutely. So, and to be honest with you guys, before last summer, I had never hosted a radio show. I've been strictly play-by-play.
It does not sound like it.
That's good. Butler didn't have a student radio program. An actual radio station. They had play-by-play, which is what I love. I love doing radio too, but never had any experience in actually hosting radio shows. So I think that's another big reason why I'm very appreciative of having KB. But yeah, it came back, and this year, who would have thought the entire NCAA tournament comes here?
Sure.
The Indianapolis 500 having fans back, even though it was 100, however many people, 140,000 maybe. But
it was around there.
There's just been crazy opportunity here, and in this biz, when your name is called, you got to show up.
Yeah,
absolutely. What do you see? You like you said, you've done the play-by-play, you've done the broadcasting side of it. What do you feel is the most intricate portion of it? Is it harder to do one or the other? Is it kind of something that you find you're partial to?
Well, I went to a really big high school in the Chicago suburbs, and they actually had a student radio station. And they gave me the opportunity to call the football and basketball games as a freshman. So, 14 years old, I'm in on like the local TV station. No idea what I was doing.
Right.
But just kind of get dipped right in it. I'd quit playing baseball my sophomore year to focus on it because after a year of doing it, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I think you make a good point where the two sides of, I guess, broadcasting, radio hosting and play-by-play, which is what I've been dispersed in, it's two totally different things, obviously. In play-by-play, what you need to describe is straight in front of you. You got the easiest job. All you got to do is say what you're watching. In radio, you're looking at a wall, and I remember the first radio show, I was looking at the wall in the studio. I was like, oh boy, nothing to describe. Like, this is all me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it took a bit to get used to, but I've been trained in play-by-play, especially, my mentor is Pat Hughes, the play-by-play voice of the Cubs on the radio side. And
he's not a bad mentor at all.
Yeah, he's the best. So he has taken me under his wing a bit in the last couple of years and really taught me some great stuff. So, no, I don't think I prefer one or the other. I just think that the two beg totally different styles and totally different sets of preparation, and I really do enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing great. I mean, one thing I want to ask you, do you want a full-time morning show gig? Do you want that?
If they came to me and asked, I would definitely listen.
Yeah.
I just don't, I'm in a weird spot because I love working with KB, and I don't know what the future of the show is. I'm just happy to have a seat next to him and Mark, and whatever the future holds, I'm ready to roll. But I love doing baseball too. So whatever happens in the next 6 months happens, and I'll be ready for anything. But it's a good situation to be in. That's what I'll say.
Have they given you a timeline on how long you're going to actually be a co-host on the morning show, or is it just day by day? I mean,
the only thing I know is that I'm going to be involved in the show regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
And now that Kev obviously has a young daughter, and he's got a young family, and he's a busy guy. He's only 31, so he's still got a social life. So at some point, Kev's going to have to just be a normal human being and actually do the things of life. So I think I'm happy to help Kev in any way he needs, whether that's from a writing standpoint or hosting standpoint, or again, it's his show. Yeah. It's the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen, and he has earned it. And if he asks me to be part of it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you guys together, you guys really feed well off of one another. You guys kind of, it's almost like you guys are meant to be there together. You guys kind of see where each other's at, and you guys kind of follow each other's leads. Whether it's you following Kevin or Kevin following you, it seems like you guys really do work well together.
There's a certain chemistry you have to have, obviously, and it definitely helps when because I've been in positions before where I've done broadcasts and I met my partner 20 minutes before the game, and you're expected, like, all right, hey, work together.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. But thankfully, I've known Kev now for just under 2 years. The first time I met him, I was board hopping for him, and then we're both big Notre Dame fans, so we immediately connected on that. He lives just off of Butler's campus, so do I. So we're close. I think we share a lot of same interests. He teaches me a ton about football. He's very curious about baseball and what I do. So I think part of being a good set of partners is genuinely being interested in what each other are doing.
Yeah.
And that can be personally or professionally. But if you take a genuine interest in what folks are doing with their lives, and then the listener can notice that we're not just blowing smoke and just trying to fill 3 hours.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that across the country, that obviously happens.
Yeah.
So I think that's my goal for however long I'm on the show, is just to do my best to give Kevin an avenue to be successful.
Sure.
And I know in turn he'll have the same for me.
Yeah, I mean, you're providing quality content right now. I don't know what your audience is looking like right now, what the numbers are, but I mean, I enjoy it. So anyways, enough kissing your ass about the show. So we'll get on to what we're here to talk about. Talk about Colts camp, man.
Yeah.
What do you see? I mean, is there actually going to be any kind of quarterback? No, I wouldn't say controversy, but I mean, is the whole preseason everyone's saying Eason or Ellinger, and now it looks like Wentz might actually play Week 1. Is that, in your opinion, do you think that's possible?
He's taken 91 throws, guys, in the last 3 days, and that doesn't sound to me like a guy that's not playing Week 1. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if any decision's been made against the Seahawks, but look, a guy that's 3 weeks out of surgery doesn't take 91 throws if he's not trying to run a gun ready for September 12th. Yeah. So from the backup perspective, though, I think Friday's a massive game.
Yeah.
Like, I've said this on the show, and I truly mean this. I think every time Eason does not just simply wow everybody, and he doesn't pull away kind of in that neck-and-neck horse race from Ellinger, that's a win for Ellinger. Because all Ellinger has to do is kind of fly under the seat of his pants.
He's got to manage the game is really all he's got to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I said this on the show too. Ellinger, if I'm Ellinger, which I'm not, and I'm not a 4-year star quarterback from Texas, right. But if I'm him, I'm putting on film of Tom Brady and Drew Brees until my eyes are forced shut and I need to go to sleep. Because Tom Brady and Drew Brees, they have mastered the short game. Tom Brady has won 7 Super Bowls, or 6 Super Bowls, whatever the number is. Six. He's won 6 Super Bowls of mastering the short game and just some dink and dunk passes. Yep. Drew Brees, he's going to be a Hall of Fame. He came out of Purdue.
And he was 5'10". I mean, he's a small guy. And
he's a Hall of Famer because he has known how to use what's at his disposal. And that's how Ellinger is going to have success in this league. Yeah. So, again, I love the big arm from Eason, but Eason to me is he's like that 7th inning reliever that wants to be a closer, but he doesn't have the strikeout pitch.
Sure.
He doesn't have the ability to leave the pocket, and I don't think he's a master of reading defenses yet. He could. Certainly could, but Ellinger to me just kind of has that changeup where, okay, he doesn't have the best arm, but he has the ability to leave the pocket. He reads defense as well. He played against high competition at Texas, so I've been on Team Ellinger, and I'm staying there. And unless Easton wows me on Friday.
Yeah, that's what I've been looking at. From the information that I gather is how much Ellinger gives the Colts an ability to extend a play. Allow someone, maybe it be a Strawn or a T.Y. or a Pittman or Paris Campbell get open, and he can make a play. It's not going to be a 70-yard down the field bomb with accuracy, but with his ability to get out of the pocket and move around a little bit, he does give the Colts an opportunity to extend a play where Eason, he can throw it a mile, but he doesn't allow you to extend plays if coverage is solid or the pocket breaks down. He's not going to be able to escape.
Yeah, and that's the sexy appeal of Eason. I mean, the way that people watch sports today, as you guys know, is they want instant gratification, and they want the big plays, and they want to see T.Y. Hilton catch deep balls. They want to see Paris Campbell catch deep balls. And Jacob Eason's going to be the guy that's going to be able to deliver those deep balls. Today at practice, Eason had a monster throw to T.Y. for a touchdown, 65 yards maybe. And it was straight to the end zone. I mean, it was impressive. Carson Wentz threw 2 more interceptions today in 7-on-7. What does that mean? I don't know. Ellinger got most of the 11v11 time today. What does that mean? I don't know. Yeah. I do know that the Colts, as a group, are very bullish on Ellinger. I mean, they gush about his character more than anybody I've seen on that team. Right. So it would not surprise me. If Eason's the backup, fine. But if they end up putting together a little package for Ellinger and keep him on the roster, that would not surprise me.
That brings me to my next question. Do you see them keep dropping one of the two? Either before, I wouldn't say the 53-man cut. I wouldn't say that, but maybe at some point during the season. Do you see that happening at all? Or are they going to keep 3 quarterbacks?
It's a great question. And I'm not sure if Chris Ballard even knows. Again, I think of this like the stretch run in the Kentucky Derby, where you got just 2 power horses, and neither of them are just able to pull away. We're running towards a photo finish, and the announcer's getting hyped, the people are getting hyped, and it's going to be a photo finish, and we're going to need to go to the replay. That's how close this is, in my opinion. And Friday is going to tell us a lot, but if they cut Eason, somebody's going to scoop him right away. They're going to, because everybody's obsessed with the big arm. I mean, hell, John Elway would probably go get him. He loves the 6'5" guys and big arms. Yeah. John Elway loves that.
Yeah, he's got Teddy Bridgewater starting week 1. Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, hell, he signed Brock Osweiler for $1 billion. So, if they cut Ellinger, though, I think you have an easier time squeaking Ellinger on your practice squad than Eason.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on Ellinger. It's just that Ellinger's got a bit more of a way to kind of become that established starter than Eason does. They could throw Eason in there and people will see the big arm go, ooh, ah, and it's like, all right, yeah, we're cool with him. But the minute Ellinger throws an interception, people are going to give up on him because of the lack of arm strength. So, Again, I could see them carrying 3. I could see them having a package for Ellinger, but who knows if they can afford it.
Yeah. Sitting there watching camp, you've obviously seen firsthand the difference in arm strength. We keep going back to that. Is it substantially noticeable of Ellinger's arm strength or lack thereof?
That's been
a huge topic that everybody wants to talk about is arm strength. But I mean, is it really that much different?
In the grand scheme of things, no. I think that people just needed another point to talk about Cam, and media creates controversy. It never does. I will say what's more noticeable than the arm strength, because how often are they throwing deep balls in camp? They give Easton a couple deep balls a day, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. What's more noticeable is Ellinger's lack of height when he's going against, when Buckner's coming at him, when Stewart's coming at him, when Kwity Paye is burning Sam Tebby. I can't tell you how many times that happened.
It's not surprising.
Tons. But the Colts have a monstrous defensive line. Everybody knows that. And Ellinger, I think he's listed at 6'1". I'd be surprised if he was actually 6'1". But the lack of height in Ellinger, I think, shows more than the arm strength. But on a counterpoint, I will say the Colts have missed, 3/5 of their defense, or of their offensive line for the majority of camp. I mean, Eric Fisher is still not close. In a rehab type thing, he hasn't put on the pads.
Right.
Quentin Nelson is back, but he wasn't playing 11v11. Ryan Kelly's back, but he wasn't playing 11v11. Lewinsky, and Braden Smith just signed the mega deal. So really, you're for most of camp, your only reliable guy was on the right tackle side.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Kwity Paye, again, is just eating up Sam Tebby every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be more interested to see if Ellinger could respond with his offensive line fully there going against the defensive line, because he probably will get more of a break.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about, you keep bringing up Kwity Paye. Does he?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
You love Kwity Paye, don't you?
I'm a
You always
huge
talk about
I'm a huge fan of Kwity Paye. I was jumping up and down in my living room when they drafted him. He, to me, watching. I'm not a Michigan fan by any means, but I watch Big Ten football as much as I can. And to me, watching that kid play, he genuinely looks like the real deal. He looks like something that we've been missing, since the Freeney Mathis days. What is your opinion on him?
Just a game crusher, man. And I said early we should take what he did to Tebby and Will Holden with a grain of salt because
They are.
Will Holden and Sam Tebb, they're backup left tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's arguing about that. I think Davenport's been a little bit better as of late, but again, I would have loved to see Kwity Paye go against Eric Fisher. That would have been so. Good.
That would have been the test that we'd all know.
That's that telling point
that he's real.
Yeah. So, but of course, as you guys know, Paye picks up a sack against the Vikings. They're playing a backup left tackle, and not the kid that they drafted right before him. That would have been a great matchup.
Yeah.
But I'd be very interested to see Paye go against. I think the Seattle left tackle is Dwayne Brown. And it was questionable heading into the final week of the preseason. But Dwayne Brown, at least a guy that signed a deal recently, is making millions of dollars. He's a legitimate left tackle in this league. If Paye can go against him and show the same thing that he was doing in practice, I will fully be on board. And, we talked to Kwity earlier today in the morning show, and everything that has been said about his character, with his upbringing, as a refugee with his mom, everything that has been talked about with him as just a guy that realizes how much he has been through in life, but still is humble and still treats people well. Everything's true. And again, Ballard emphasizes character so much. And you can talk to Ballard for 5 minutes and you bring up character.
Yeah.
So I think, in terms of a check all the boxes guy, Paye's that guy.
I mean, Paye's been through some shit. I mean, I won't deny that. I mean, but yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you, the wide receiver depth chart, man. Strawn, I love. Everyone loves Michael Strawn. He's kind of
the talk of the town right now.
He's the golden child of preseason. Des Patton, Michael Strawn, what are they doing with that fifth wide receiver spot? Are they going to keep one of them on the? I don't want to. If they put Strawn on the practice squad, he's gone in 2 days, max. Desmond Patton, what are they? I mean, I don't. And the second part of this, say halfway through the season, 3/4 of the way through the season, do you see Strawn as the fifth receiver, or is he going up that depth chart?
So, if they try, as you said, and put Strawn on the practice squad, see ya.
Yeah.
Book his tickets at the Indianapolis airport now.
Yeah.
To whatever destination it is, because he's out.
Yep.
I think I even forgot Desmond Patton was on the roster last year for 17 games.
Yeah.
And he was never touched. The guy just stood there and looked pretty. But Patton, 4 receptions, 60 yards.
I know he had a great game. That's the thing.
He's making a case for himself. It's just weird because Patman has not been that guy in practice, but in the games he's been unbelievable.
It's like Allen Iverson. It's practice.
I'll bring up another guy here too. Is to me a wide receiver that has had a top 3 camp among that group is DeMichael Harris. I can tell you that Easton and Ellinger love him.
Yeah. And
DeMichael Harris is really fast. I mean, super speed fast.
Yeah.
But they're gonna have they're gonna have a really hard time cutting him, but they're probably gonna do it. And I don't know if he gets to the practice squad because DeMichael Harris just catches footballs. Whatever ground, he was all right last year with Rivers, and when he got an opportunity, he made a couple grabs. But whatever he did over the offseason, it worked because Harris' lack of size, he has made up for it in a huge way. So I think Strawn needs to be your number 5. If you could sneak Patman on the practice squad, great. They might have a hard time doing that. But to answer the second part of your question, to me, Mike Strawn is the guy, week 6, week 7, that somebody that that you work with is going to walk into work on a Monday and be like, hey, you know who I picked up on my fantasy team?
The
Colts wide receiver that 150 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns?
Yeah.
I picked him up. And so there's going to be somebody that picks up Mike Strawn in their fantasy team and walks to the work the next day. It's like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
It's going to happen. He's the guy that's just going to go. You're watching Red Zone, and Scott mentions, hey, look at what's happening in Indianapolis right now. This Mike's 7th-round pick, Division II guy, didn't play football last year. He just caught 2 touchdowns from Carson Wentz. I would put my life savings right now on Strawn having just one monstrous game and people going nuts about it.
I could totally see that too, because he's almost, I think you said it in one of our podcasts, he's Calvin Johnson-esque. Not saying he's Calvin Johnson yet.
He's got all the size, the speed, the athletic ability, the catch
hands.
radius.
I mean, he's got everything,
He's got all that stuff that Calvin Johnson has as far as physical traits. Now, will he become Calvin Johnson? Probably not. There's not a lot of people in the world that can ever become Calvin Johnson. But he definitely has those traits.
Yeah, I mean, we throw around Hall of Fame comparisons. ESPN throws around Hall of Fame comparisons every day, so I'm all for it. But he has looked the part. I mean, you take one look at him. This is what I said on the show earlier. Mike Strawn is, when you look at him on the practice field, he's like when you go on a cruise with your family when you're 12 and you see the hottest girl you've ever seen.
I remember
saying, "Who's that? Who's that?" And he's like, "I need to meet her." And he's in front of the practice field. Wow, I need to talk to this guy. So yeah.
Does he kind of stand out on the field like just a big dude that I mean, because that's what we need. We've always had. I won't say always. Our receivers are usually fairly slight guys. You talk about Harrison, you talk about T.Y. They're not the biggest guys out there. I think that's kind of what we need. I mean, we love our tight ends as well too, and that's kind of what I want to talk next about. So Jack Doyle, and then we've got what's that kid's name? I can't think of it.
Before we move,
Granson.
Before we move on to tight ends, I got one more question for you. Since you've been around camp. T.Y.'s speed. Everybody's talking about maybe he's losing a step. Maybe he's slowing down. What's your opinion on that? And I'm definitely a T.Y. fan. I've always been a T.Y. fan. He's one of those guys that, he burns you with speed. He's a good route runner. He's not a Hall of Fame route runner. But the speed makes up for the lack of that. And is he still there? Is he still the ghost? Or is he somebody that maybe you can see taking a step back a little bit?
So he could afford a little step back if Michael Pittman's the real deal.
That's if Pittman steps up, though.
If Pittman steps up, T.Y. can take T.Y. All right, so as you guys know, I love baseball. T.Y.'s the veteran. He's the Nolan Ryan, losing his fastball, but he's still going. Yeah. He'd still strike guys out.
He'll still beat the hell out of Robin Ventura on the mound.
Yeah, he could still embarrass him, but you're not going to get that T.Y. of old. And, he says he wants 10 touchdowns this year. If he starts like last year, no way.
No.
Jacksonville game was atrocious.
No, he was he was a ghost last year, meaning that he was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, but then I don't know if it's that he just went over to Phillip Rivers' house with his 9 kids and had dinner and they had a heart-to-heart conversation or something, and then they started going off around playoff time because, again, T.Y. became T.Y. again around that Houston game.
You're right.
That's when he became T.Y. again.
Right.
But, again, if he has a 9-week start like he did last year, that's going to be the end of T.Y. in blue. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be 100 yards every game, T.Y. If Michael Pittman's the real deal, and I think Zach Pascal's due for a monster year too. T.Y., you make T.Y. your third guy, a couple grabs a game, just get him. Find a way to get him in the end zone.
Put him in the slot and just let him go.
You don't need to march down the field with T.Y. Right. Just get him in the red zone and toss something up, right? So again, as you said though, that's if Pittman's the real deal, and you're going to need him to be.
Yeah, and another thing is Paris Campbell. We've been waiting for Paris Campbell to, he's had the injuries and everything. We're waiting for him to show up. Is this the year where Paris Campbell actually shows us what he is?
God, you hope so, right?
Yeah.
And, he didn't practice today, but
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Was there
You're good.
Was there a reason why he didn't practice today? Was it an injury or anything?
Didn't see.
Okay.
I had to book it from practice right after because KB and I talked with JT. That's on the show tomorrow.
Yeah.
but you really hope so, right? But that's a situation, Michael, where you're like, all right, Harris still isn't healthy. Mike Strawn's the number 5 guy. Hey, Desmond Patman, come here.
Yeah,
That's
right.
That's the Desmond Patman opportunity, or that's the DeMichael Harris opportunity. If you don't lose, if you can get DeMichael Harris on your practice squad, I would be overjoyed.
Yeah,
because he can come. He's like that guy that comes up from AAA, smacks 2 home runs, goes back down,
right.
and just is, he's on the shuttle. He's on the Indianapolis shuttle to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Campbell can't stay healthy, there's your opportunity, Desmond Patman. But I think for the sake of the mental health of Chris Ballard, you need Harris Campbell to play 17.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, he was so hyped up coming out of college, and the injuries and everything, and it didn't pan out. Or I won't say it didn't pan out. He just did not meet the expectations that everyone was hoping for. I'll move to running backs now. And the one thing I'll say about the receivers before I go to that, I know that a few months ago everyone was saying our wide receiver core is horrible. Like it's the depth is not there. And I think after camp we're looking pretty solid as far as receivers go. I mean, they might not all be Pro Bowlers, but I feel like we got some guys that can get some things done.
Yeah, I think it's a good room. I really think it's a good room, and I just feel really bad for T.Y. You look at, since, call it 2016, all the quarterbacks he's needed to work with, and all the different styles. I mean, holy cow, guys! Scott Tolzien's in that group.
Yeah.
For goodness sake.
Yeah.
Like, get me a cast of characters that features Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Scott Tolzien, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. I could keep going. I mean, that's an SNL cast right there. It's a full SNL cast. So, I don't know how T.Y.'s. I really would like to ask T.Y. at his next media availability. Like, how do you even maintain stability as a wide receiver when all these contrasting styles? Hell, Easton and Ellinger now. I mean,
exactly. Right.
So how do you maintain stability when all these different types of styles of QB? Because Phillip Rivers and Andrew Luck, 2 completely different guys.
Right.
Andrew Luck, Carson Wentz, 2 completely different guys. So, that'd be a question I'd really want to ask T.Y.
Yeah. So I want to talk about running backs. JT is looking dynamite in camp. I think everyone kind of knew that he was going to be, After Mac went down last year, he kind of showed up right after. I really as soon as Mac went down, Taylor was like, "All right, I've got this."
He kind of showed up and showed out.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got 3 running backs. I mean, what I talked to who were we talking to? Derek Schultz, I think.
I think it was Derek.
And I said, "What could they get rid of Mac and try to get something for him?" I mean, I know he just came off the injury, but do we need all 3 of them? I mean, that's gonna.
In reality, it's 4. We've got.
Oh Jonathan, and Jordan Wilkins.
We've got Jonathan Taylor. We've got Marlon Mack. We've got Nyheim Hines. We've got Jordan Wilkins.
Wilkins, who showed out in camp as well.
Who's had a really good camp.
Yeah. So what do you think about the running back situation right now as it stands?
So we're gonna have JT on tomorrow morning, and again, it's pre-tape, but I asked him about the running back room and kind of differentiated all the guys, because I feel like everybody has a very unique, separate skill that they bring to the room.
Yeah.
Like, JT just runs your tail off and just bursts right into you. Marlon Mack's shifty. Nyheim Hines has the ability to catch and run the ball at an elite level. And Jordan Wilkins just damn runs, man. Jordan Wilkins, his average for his career, yards per attempt, 4.9.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Geez.
That's elite level numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that's elite. So we talked to Wilkins the other day too. So I think they're in good shape with the running back room. Yeah, I think KB is more on the trade Marlon Mack train or cut Marlon Mack train than me. I just haven't seen enough from him to be able to warrant that decision. I think you sent him out for the regular season, and you take your chance. You re-signed him for a reason. You brought him back for a reason after an Achilles injury. So see what he's got. I just don't think that 3 preseason games with everybody just not being willing to play starters, that's not a good benchmark. to actually evaluate what's going on, especially again, the Colts have had just the paper mache offensive line all camp. I mean, nobody's been there. So between preseason, bad offensive line, and Marlon Mack coming back from a serious injury, I'm not ready to say, this guy can't play.
I'm not saying he can't play. I'm just like, I feel like he could.
That's like the perception.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like he could be some trade bait possibly. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass, but I mean, I feel like he could be. I mean, he was coming into last year. He was, probably going to be a top maybe 12, 15 running back in the league, I'd say.
Yeah. No, he was due for a big year, obviously, and that would have seriously helped. Adding Marlon Mack to that room, maybe you beat Buffalo if you have one more big option, right? Maybe who knows how you beat Buffalo? They had that game won, but maybe having Marlon Mack in that room gives you a playoff win.
Yeah,
sure. I think looking back at it, there was a lot of things in that Buffalo game that could have helped, but when it all broke down, man, they just flat out played us. They were the tougher team. They were the gutsier team. They made the right calls, and they just flat out played.
I mean, we were in the elements too, man. I mean, that was I remember it was a cold game. It was just and Allen really showed what he really is, and everyone's using the term generational quarterback now. I think that's really what he is, or a generational player. I think that's really what he is.
I've said this for months that if Patrick Mahomes did not exist, Josh Allen would be the generational quarterback that changes the game. Sure. Josh Allen would be on every cover. Josh Allen would be, the star social media dude. If it wasn't for Mahomes, Josh Allen's the guy, and there's gonna be a long. If Mahomes stays healthy, most importantly, and Mahomes keeps up this pace, Josh Allen is going to be the Drew Brees to the Tom Brady type thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're both probably going to be. I mean, maybe it's too early to say. I feel like Mahomes is probably has 1 foot in the Hall of Fame, and Josh Allen's right behind him, even though they're so young. But I feel like they're both probably going to be there. I wanted to ask you: you're from Chicago? Are you a Bears fan?
Never was a Bears guy.
Really? I wanted to ask you about Justin Fields, man.
Well, I mean, I could talk about it. But, being from there, you're dispersed in it.
No, sure.
You have to know what's going on. But I didn't play football as a kid, so I never had an interest in attending Bears training camp or even going to Soldier Field. The first time I ever went to Soldier Field, Notre Dame was playing a Shamrock Series game.
I remember that game. It was so good.
It was against Miami. Yeah, so I was there with my dad.
Was the convicts versus the what was it called?
Catholics versus convicts.
Catholics versus convicts. Yeah, I've got 5 friends from SB, so five really good friends. But so
they ever go to any South Bend Cubs games?
No, but I want to. I've been to a few Notre Dame games. Now I need to go up in the press box with you at some South Bend Cubs games.
anytime. But no, being from Chicago, I've been a diehard Cubs fan since I was a baby, and then my uncle, before he passed away, he was actually a Blackhawks season ticket holder.
Oh, nice,
so
fantastic.
We had some fun.
Yeah. Did you mention you were from the South Side though?
South Side guy. Yeah.
South Side guy and a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How much?
You didn't talk about that much in high school.
How much shit did you get as a kid being a Cubs fan?
So the Sox won the World Series in 2005.
Yeah.
I would have been just about to turn 11.
God, you're young.
And I was, I was the kid in school that always wore sports stuff or always wore a jersey to school. And when the Sox were making their run, I just harassed all my friends because we're from around Orland Park, Illinois, which is it's probably about a 30-minute drive to the city, right up Dan Ryan.
Yeah.
And but I always remember as a kid, whenever my friends made fun of me for the Cubs being terrible, 2003 was all we had, and that was the Bartman thing, so that didn't help.
Yeah.
But I remember always telling my friends, I'm going to get you back someday. I'm going to get you back soday, and then the someday was 2016, and I don't talk to half of them anymore. So I never was able to get them back for that. But my dad's family grew up on the South Side as well, and my grandma was a diehard Cubs fan because she grew up in the city. She actually worked a lot of her life at the old OG Marshall Fields.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so she was in the city every day. So grew up going to games with her, and that's kind of how it all started.
Sorry, I've got the Brewers hat on. I'm a Brewers fan.
It's cool. If people ask me like, how do you feel about the KB and the Riz and the hockey stuff? I was all for it. Like, how many September collapses do you need to realize that it's not on the manager anymore? Like, at some point, it's on the players.
Yeah.
Like, I think David Ross has done a great job, and they tried to put it on Joe after 2019 or whatever, and then 2020 they win the division and they get swept by Miami. Like, come on, like, it's eventually on the players.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, a month or so ago, the Cubs had a fire sale. What the hell happened? What were they doing? What's their ultimate goal?
So working in the organization, I can personally tell you that I think the farm system is in better shape right now than it was in like 2014.
Yeah.
The difference between now and when like Bryant was coming up and Baez was coming up, sure, in 2014 or whatever, you had the high profile guys and you had the marquee guys that you would put up, like, here comes Chris Bryant, here comes Javi Baez, here comes Arrieta, here comes Hendricks, whatever. But now there's not as many like movie star red carpet guys. The difference now is that everybody in that system can play. Yeah. They have built it to where there's just a bunch of rock solid dudes, and more so now where in 2014 you knew who was coming up. Right now there's competition for spots, and these guys are going to fight their tail off to get up to Wrigley, and I really like that because I'm a David Ross fan. I think he's a nice guy. I've met him multiple times. And, he's going to take the guys that compete the hardest, and compete the most. So I was fine with the fire sale. The problem is winning the division in 2020 is the worst thing that could have happened. Because this is something that probably should have started last year. But, of course, they win the division, so you can't do that. But now you come back this year, and if you run into trouble, you just got to do it because there's no way Boris is signing a deal with the Cubs. Because it's not Bryant's decision, it's Boris's decision.
Right.
I don't think Baez was going to come back because Baez is delusional that he thinks he's getting $300 million. You're hitting 205, like, step back. And then Rizzo, I think Rizzo could get $100 million. I don't know if it's from the Cubs though. So all three of those guys, I think, are on their way out.
Yeah,
true. You talked about David Ross, and I've always been a fan of his. I just like the way he conducted himself during the game, and how he played the game, and the kind of teammate, the kind of person that he was. I'm a huge Red Sox fan, so I don't see blue, obviously hating the Yankees, but I do appreciate that guy, and I think he's doing the best he can with what he's got right now. The upper brass in that organization, that they sent away a lot of talent, and they're not winning, but they're competing at least. They're not just getting blown out 7-1, 8-2 kind of thing. They're actually competing a little bit. They've had a couple of downer games, but they're still there.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's a testament to Ross being a good manager and not just being out there.
Right. No, anybody that tries to pin like the second half just terribleness on Ross is like, what are you doing? Like, this guy has got a clubhouse right now, and your best hitter is a 30-year-old journeyman, like Ortega, the guy that just hit the walk-off. Like Hayward. I love Jason Hayward as a person, but that contract just turned out to be brutal. Brutal. And you can't pay a guy $200 million or $184 million, whatever it was, for being a Gold Glover. Like, you need to hit the ball.
You need offense. You need offense.
Yeah, and Ian Happ, he had a great 2020. He's regressed this year. I love me some David Bodie, but David Bodie's a utility player.
Yeah.
David Bodie's kind of like that Brock Holt. You brought up that you were a Red Sox fan. Brock Holt is kind of like that board with the Red Sox and their running. He's kind of like that borderline, just squeaking the lineup. I think that's what David Bodie is. And the only other guy for the World Series team, there are two guys, Contreras and Hendricks, and they're rock solid. But you can't put this on Ross at all, and you just need to let time pass because it's going to be like 2022 is going to be rough. 2023, maybe half of it will be rough. But I feel like 2024. And the prospects that I know personally, I have the fullest confidence in. I think they'll be back. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. Dude, I appreciate you taking so much of your time out with us. I mean, it's been over 45 minutes. We covered so many subjects. Thank you so much for being on the show. Chad, you got anything to say?
No, just thank you again. It was really nice talking to you. Really appreciate you taking your time to be with us, and hopefully we get to talk to you again here real soon.
Yeah, guys, no, it's a pleasure, and I appreciate the support. We'll see what happens here in the near future, but like I told you guys earlier, I'm just having a blast, and for as long as KV says come on the show, I will be in that chair.
Yeah, that's
absolutely, man. We're rooting for you.
That's all you can ask for, man. So,
Yeah, man.
Brendan King, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. On the Fan Morning Show right now, South Bend Cubs play-by-play. You're still doing Indians play-by-play too, right?
Just filling in for a few games with Howard.
Filling in for a few games.
Unreal experience. I mean, Howard Kelman, legend. I mean, guy's been doing it 50 years.
Yeah.
So great
Well,
guy.
so anyways, you'll catch Brendan King on basically any sport in Indianapolis. So, all right, man. I appreciate you being on, man. Take care, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks again,
fellas.
Brandon.
See ya.
Thank you. All right, that was Brendan King from 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And now we have our good friend Tony Donahue. I don't think you're a special guest anymore. You're more like a regular now.
Well, shout out to B. King, who was my intern at one point at the station. And sorry I'm a little late. I went up and saw JMV today up at Twin Peaks. Obviously, with all the memories and the shout outs to Robin Miller, I thought that was a good idea to go spend some time with old buddy Johnny.
Yeah, I heard him talking to God, who was that on the way home today? I forget who he was talking to, but it was really nice hearing about that. We'll get back to that in a minute. My girlfriend wanted me to ask you about Fowling Warehouse because she wants to go up there soon. How awesome is it?
Bring her up. Foaling is a great time. It's a perfect date night.
Wait, is it foaling or fouling?
It's foaling. So you just take the F or the B in bowling, and you take off.
Okay.
The B, you put that's foaling.
Foaling, football, and I got it. Okay, I've been saying.
So the cool thing about it is it's like a backyard tailgate game, right? You set up the pins, you're throwing footballs at them. But the game itself and the entire concept was started in the Coke lot at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A bunch of guys were in for the race from Detroit, so they brought these boards to actually bowl while camping and drinking and getting drunk, obviously out in the Coke lot, which is what you do.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the bowling balls are kind of flying everywhere, and they were like, well, we can't do this anymore. And next to them they had a football, and they whipped the football down, and it shattered the pins everywhere, made a great noise. And then they do the championships every year, the day before the 500, and then it kind of developed into, hey, maybe this is something that people can go do, like something along the lines of a Topgolf or a duck pin bowling, where it's you can drink, but you're active, but you really don't have to have too much skill. You just need to be able to throw the football down. So you guys come in anytime. You'll love it. It's an absolute blast.
Awesome. Yeah. She wants to go. We're probably going to go pretty soon. Maybe catch up with you, hang out for a little while, drink some beers. So I wanted to talk about, like we just mentioned, man, we lost a big one today, man. We lost a good guy. And you probably know him. You've known him for a long time, right? I mean, you met him when you were a child. Robin Miller. One thing that I'll say, when I was a kid, reading the Indy Star, in the mornings, like before school or on Sunday mornings, whatever, having breakfast, I would always go to the Robin Miller articles because he always painted such a great picture of whatever he was talking about. And he had so many opinions he had strong opinions about whatever he was talking about, right or wrong. The dude, he didn't give a shit about anyone's feelings. He didn't care. He's going to say what he wants to say, and he's going to stick by it. And the guy was just, I mean, obviously an Indianapolis legend, and obviously for the racing community as a whole around the world. I mean, he's been around. He was around for 50 years doing all this. So I know you know him a hell of a lot better than I do. Just expound on that and let us know kind of what give us any stories or anything that you've got from him, because I know he'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, so Robin and I met when I was a young kid. My dad, where I grew up at in Northwest Indiana, was in the service department for a Chrysler Dodge dealership, and I think it was 1987. The Indianapolis 500 pace car was like a LeBaron convertible or something. Anyway, on the way to Milwaukee, it broke down, and so Robin, probably I'm assuming got to a payphone at the time and made a phone call to the nearest dealership. And my dad was like, "Wait, like Robin Miller from Indy Star. I'm a big Indy 500 guy. My dad takes care of him." And from that point on, I wasn't born yet, but then going to the racetrack growing up, when I'd be with my dad, he'd always stop and say hi to Robin, and Robin would come over and chat with us. Then I really got to know him more when I moved down here, and I knew I wanted to be a racing journalist. I got my first start was with a driver named Thomas Schechter. I wrote his website, did some stuff for him. That developed into going to college to be a sports journalist. I obviously wanted to be racing. My biggest passions are the Indy 500 and basketball. So, I was like, hell, it would be a dream job to be able to do racing in the summer and then do basketball in the winter. So I got to know Robin a lot better. And then when I got connected with JMV, him and Robin are obviously good friends. So we'd have Robin in all the time. And like you said, Robin called it how he saw it. He was the type of person that could see both sides of the story, though. He was always going to stick to his opinion, but he could see both sides of the story. And everybody thinks him and Tony George butted heads, and they weren't because of the split. But I mean, Robin, when we brought Robin and Tony in to studio together, they chatted about things. Robin gave him credit where credit was due. Tony said the same thing. Robin's very passionate. He's going to tell you how it is. So Robin and I just became really good friends. We would text often. We'd go to Working Man's Friend and have lunch. He was one of the first guests on my podcast. We actually sat in the parking lot of Working Man's Friend and talked about just racing and life in general. So I'll give you two quick stories that I think are very entertaining. I'm about to record a whole podcast on it here, but I'll give it to you guys first. The first one was, I'll never forget the time that he came in the week of the Kentucky Derby, and he was like, "Hey, let's just call AJ Foyt. Let's see what AJ Foyt's up to." I'm like, if he answers,
cool, yeah. Man.
So he texts AJ, says, "Hey, we're gonna be calling you from this number. Answer." And AJ's like, "Well, I'm down here smoking cigars, betting the Kentucky Oaks today. Yeah. But all right, call me." So I dial up the number. "Hello?" And I said, "Yeah, Mr. Foyt, my name's Tony. Robin Miller sitting here." He said, yeah, put him on. Hurry up." So Robin is in the middle of asking AJ like a question. And AJ's like, "Come on now, come on, Four. And he's cheering for Fours. He's gonna like cussing on the air, like dropping F-bombs, and it was like, but it was all something that Robin could have set up. Like nobody in this world could have set that up to happen.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more quick story. I shared on my podcast a few weeks ago. So I might have told you guys this too. So if I did, I apologize. So I had pretty decent Andrew Luck sources at my time at 1070. JV and I both did. And after a game, I had gotten a text at about 7 o'clock on a Sunday night that said, "Hey, Andrew Luck is throwing up in the trash can. The only thing that I can think of is it's a concussion." And I was like, "Okay." So I said to JMV, I said, "This is the information I got. It's obviously somebody I trust." And he's like, "All right." So I said, "Yeah, let me make one more phone call real quick before I send this out on Twitter." So I call Robin. And it was November. This was a November game. And I said, "Robin, so Andrew Luck is throwing up in a trash can right now, and my source is saying that he's like 100% concussed." Mm-hmm. Now, normally people would say, "Oh, well, whatever, you go through the protocol, maybe, you miss a few days of practice." Problem is the Colts were playing the Steelers that Thursday on, I believe it was Thanksgiving.
Oh, I remember that game, yeah.
And I said, "Robin, if Scott Tolzien has to start that game, the Colts will get destroyed." And I said, "The spread right now is Steelers -3. This is going to go up to probably double digits."
I don't mean to cut you off. We've had 2 Scott Tolzien references in one podcast.
Yeah.
How in the hell does that happen? So anyway, go ahead.
I said to Robin, I'm about to send this story out, but like, you need to bet right now. So Robin calls his bookie. I'm assuming he played 1,000, 1,500 on it. Not much. Nah, it was probably more than that.
Yeah.
And of course, my information was correct. Andrew Luck concussed. Scott Tolzien starts in Pittsburgh. They lose 27-9. Get absolutely freaking annihilated.
Yeah,
right?
I remember that.
So about a month later, it's 2016. A month later, in December, Alexander Rossi was doing a thing at the Speedway Museum, and they were unveiling his likeness on the Borg Warner Trophy. And so I was there, and Robin saw me, and he's like, "Hey, kid, come over here." Robin, what's going on, man? How you doing? He goes, "Here, I owe you this." Okay, 1, 2, 3, $500.
Oh, shit.
We were right on that. Andrew Luck having a concussion. All my buddies and I cleaned up on that Steelers-Colts game. I was like, well, okay then. Thanks. Like, that's right on. And he always made a joke when he'd come on with J&B and I and say, if I didn't gamble, I would have a mansion on Geist right now, and that mansion still wouldn't be big enough for all the people that think highly of Robin, that are friends with Robin. And,
absolutely.
J&B kind of said it best today that, no matter what was going on in Robin's life, he always asked about you or your family or how you were doing. So, I'm very unfiltered, so I definitely have always looked up to Robin Miller for a lot of different reasons. But he was great to everybody, and sometimes in death, people will say things just to say things like, "Oh, he was a good guy," or "Oh, sad to see him go." I don't think anybody today saying that. They were sad to see Robin go, or sending that's all from the heart. Because I think if you spent a minute with Robin Miller, you knew that you became a friend of his, and that he would remember you, and was just a great guy to be around. I mean, you would walk into the media center at the Speedway, and where our setup was, you had like 50 rows of desks, and when I was at the Fan, we were always set up right in front of Robin. And you would go by, and he'd have a dozen Long's donuts there.
Yeah, obviously.
He would have cans of Pepsi.
His candy bag.
Yeah, he would have all these treats and snacks, and hey, help yourself. And, at first, you're like, all right, all right, I'll take a piece of gum. But then it just became like, oh, hey, Robin, how you doing? And he would bring, a cupcake and some gum and whatever else was on there.
Yeah.
Just a salt of the earth type guy.
Yeah, he really was. Sorry.
He to me, he became kind of a pioneer in the multi-phase media. Not just a written journalist, and not just somebody that would talk on the radio, and not somebody that would just talk about racing, but he became someone that could do it all. He was multifaceted. I mean, he was incredible at all phases of media.
Yeah, I mean, he did what? He did the Colts, Pacers, IU, obviously racing. I mean, he did it all, man. I mean, that guy, he knew what the hell he was doing, and he didn't give a shit what anyone thought about what he was saying, which is what I love.
He was an all-skate kind of guy. He would challenge Bobby Knight. I mean, him and Bobby Knight went at it. AJ Foyt hit him in the back of the head one time. Is the story that he told. But at the end of the day, like you said, all these guys respected him, and he still, or to his death, was still friends, really close with Bobby Unser. I mean, I think what it was is that he was such a genuine guy, and like you said, wasn't afraid of the truth, that you had as a coach or as a player or as another sports writer, you had no decision but to respect the guy and love the guy, because he's also someone that you don't want to have as one of your enemies. And I know that him and Bobby Knight had gotten into it many times. He's gotten into it with a lot of people, but at the end of the day, he sticks up for his opinion and what he thought was right. And some of the stories that he told on air, I wish I could tell a lot of the stories that he told off of the air. But one of the best was...
You can, dude. We're totally unfiltered.
Yeah, so the Bobby Unser story, there's a couple. One, I would never share being recorded, so if you see me in person, I could definitely tell you that. But, he would always tell the story of Bobby Unser going to the Kroger over there off.
I know this story, and it's so good. Please tell it.
He would walk around with a turkey, and he'd flirt with some girl that was there, and he would say, "Hey, you know, where I'm staying at doesn't have an oven. Can I come over and make this turkey at your place?" And you know, next thing you know, Bobby's being Bobby. So there's also another story where I guess Robin took his sprint car in the '80s over to the Wild Cherry, which is a strip club right next to the Speedway.
Oh, I know.
And found three strippers and said, "Hey, I want to do a photo shoot next to my race car." They said, "Okay." Well, Robin somehow finagled, snuck in, however he did it, into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and was doing this photo shoot with these three strippers. And they're like, "What are you doing? You can't be doing this." And he's like, "Oh, well, the gate, you know, in typical Robin fashion. Oh, the gate was left open. The gate was open. So how am I supposed to know?" So he knew how to talk his way out of things too when he needed to.
Yeah, literally, he was one of those, just like we've said, just one of those unfiltered guys. Doesn't give a shit what anyone thinks. I mean, that's hard to, because, you know, like I said earlier, back when I was, you know, I'm reading the Indy Star Sports section as a 10, 12-year-old, everyone's giving these generic, I wouldn't even say opinions, they're just giving these, you know, stats, generic stuff. He would just say what he thought, and that's what I loved about him, man. It didn't matter who he pissed off. I remember Jake Query posted today that he called Robin, I guess, and said he was friends with Pat Knight because he went to IU at the same time as Pat Knight did, and Robin just ripped him when he called him. It's like that's just total Robin, man. Like, he's gonna be honest with you, but he's also one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, which is, you know, it's just crazy. You know, a lot of people, you know, didn't like him because of, you know, how brash he was, but if you really knew him, he was such a sweet guy that you couldn't hate him. You know, I mean, no matter what he said about you or who you liked or whatever sports team you liked or whatever racer you liked, whatever, he was just the nicest guy in person. You know, I only met him a few times, just kind of in passing.
Yeah. But and just the impact that he had on a lot of, you know, you look at guys like Mike Chappell and Conrad Brunner.
I think it was Chappell that JMD was talking to earlier today about his stories. Yeah,
and the respect level they have for him, and how high of a regard that they've always held him in, and you know, we saw it when we had him on. You know, people were listening. People wanted to know what was going on. We had controversy with him. Him and Dockage went back and forth a few times, which was pretty funny.
Well, Dockage is an asshole, so whatever.
Yeah, you just think about, you know, just the level of, I can't think of somebody else in this city that has talked the talk and walked the walk like Robin has, and commands the respect of everybody around him, can tell you stories for days. I mean, I've been to Working Man's Friend when it was just him and JMV and I, when it was just him and I. Jeff Smoyne, the CEO of Emmis, came with us one time. We took Kyle Larson over there one time.
I heard about that today, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, just, you know, you could literally like just sit there and you know, it's hard for. I like to talk. You know, I like to be involved in things,
yeah.
but when Robin talks, it's like you got to shut up and listen, because this guy's going to teach you something. You're going to laugh, and like you said, he's going to tell you how it is. I mean, when people say, "What do you mean, like, tell you how it is?" It doesn't have to be, "Oh, this guy sucks," and this guy's
he's just honest.
Or you know, when he was the old scout at the Indianapolis Star, writing things and saying that this Colts quarterback couldn't throw it onto Washington Street from the top of the RCA Dome or whatever. But like, tall as it is, you know, he would say, you know, Tony, there was a time in the '60s and early '70s where if there was a crash at the track, you would run down to the tunnel at 16th Street, and if they turned left, you knew that that driver was still alive. They were taking him to Methodist.
Yeah.
And let's turn right to go west. they were taking him all the way up, and they're going to hook another ride on Georgetown and go up to 38th Street and go to Crown Hill Cemetery because that driver was dead. So just, it was just total nonchalant, matter-of-fact type stuff out of Robin. And but the level of respect that I think we learned today that obviously we knew that he had, but I mean, he was trending, number 4 nationally today, number 4 in Indiana. And this is a guy that's not even on social media. He's barely on Facebook. We would text back and forth all the time. And just, one of the few guys in my professional career as far as radio or writing or journalism that I revered and respected 100%. I mean, he's in my top 3 behind, or not even behind, but right there with Bob Lovell and what J&B's done for me. So,
sure.
Very, very tough loss today. We knew it was coming, and what I took out of everything today was to celebrate his life, to bet some games, because that's what he would want to do.
Yep.
And just be thankful that he got to go to the racetrack last weekend and that they had that race there with NASCAR and IndyCar, so he could see pretty much anybody that he needed to see, and kind of got his final victory lap there.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like he wouldn't want anyone to mourn his death. He didn't want you to talk shit about him, just because that's how he is. I mean,
Jake. I think Jake posted this on Twitter today, but when Justin Wilson died, or Brian Clausen died, or Dan Weldon died, Robin had the words. He had that calming voice of like, look, this is life, this is what happens, but let's remember Dan Weldon's smile and where he was 6 months ago at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Or let's remember how much of a family man Justin Wilson was, and how he was a driver that had a crap car at Dale Coyne and still won, or Brian Clausen was that kid that everybody wants to be, that starts out dirt track racing, that started out in a sprint car running dirt, that got to the Indy 500, which was the dream, that happened so often in the 50s and 60s that doesn't happen anymore. And now I just think about, sitting in his Ford Escape outside of a Working Man's Friend and recording a podcast, or going to the state fair with them and shooting baskets and eating food and showing guys like Simon Pagenaud or Tony Kanaan or some of these foreign guys that have never been to a hillbilly-ass state fair because they're from overseas, and going, oh man, this is Indiana. These are and all these people that are here are the same fans that'll be there on race day cheering you on.
Yeah, Robin was definitely one of those true Central Indiana, icons, whether it be with sports or racing or through his journalism words or whatever he did. He always seemed to do it above and beyond others. It was never something that he took lightly. He always took it with the extreme passion, that a lot of people, on these big syndicated, TV shows and things, they do it for a paycheck. Robin did it for the passion and the love that he had for Indiana and for our sports and for racing,
And I think there was a story that either he told me or maybe I read. I think he told me, where he was in the newsroom at the Indy Star one day, and somebody called, asked for Robin Miller, and Robin's like doing this on the phone, and this guy's at him. And somebody was like, Robin, was that did you anger another listener? Or I'm sorry, another reader? And he goes, that's just Tom Sneva bitching about something I wrote about him over the weekend. But he was also the glue that kept maybe the bridge even that gapped the history of Indianapolis sports from the 50s and 60s and 70s to the three of ours generation. Yeah. To not forget about the ABA, to not forget about Bobby Unser or Tom Sneva or Gordon Johncock. And he was the one that him and a guy named Steve Shunk, who's a great guy that worked in media for a very long time, they were the guys that kept the old timers around, kept the stories going. Were the guys that were when Slick Leonard died, it was like, okay, Robin's the guy we want to talk to because he's got the calming voice, and we know that he can give us a laugh about Slick Leonard smoking a pack of cigarettes in the locker room at halftime because the Pacers were down by 7 to the Spurs, or sitting there grabbing a referee by the neck while Robin and everybody's smoking cigarettes at the score stand at the old Coliseum. So, Yeah, I mean, it's tough. 71 is still pretty, I would say, pretty young. When you see a lot of people going in their 80s, the 70s and 80s, but I can definitely say, from knowing him, from reading about him, reading his stuff, that he lived 71 really, really freaking good years.
Yeah, that's one. Sorry.
You kind of lived. You live with him. As far as being a friend to him and him being a friend to you. And I know for Mikey and I, we can say we're incredibly envious of that. Just because we've always, trying to do what we're doing with this podcast and growing this podcast and things like that, and having guys like you on, we're envious of that because we never really got to sit down.
We love the insights, honestly.
Yeah, and never getting to sit down with somebody like Robin, who again is an icon in the sports world in Central Indiana. It makes us envious, but at the same time, being able to hear your stories and some of the other guys' stories that they are going to share over time, helps us to know, man, this guy really was who we thought he was. And to me, that's important.
You talking about Slick reminded me of, God, I used to, so as you know, I mean, you and I are big Pacers fans, and I've been to too many Pacers games to count. I used to go out and smoke with Slick out on that balcony right over by section, what is it, 2 or 3? And we used to go out there and smoke and be like, "Hey, Mike, what's going on?" I'd be like, "Hey, Slick, what's up, buddy?" We talk for a minute, whatever. And the thing that I can remember about Robin, one thing that really sticks in my mind is when he was actually on JMV when Slick died. And he was choking up. He couldn't even talk because he was so emotional about Slick dying. And that was really a touching moment when you realize people that aren't in the know, that aren't as close to him as you are, or as close to him as you were, or whatever, didn't realize that Robin Miller is actually a really sweet guy, and he has emotions. He's a normal person, someone close to you died. I mean, he was just very. When Slick died, when I heard him on JMV choking up, I about teared up just listening to that. I mean, it was just amazing.
Well, like we talked about, he was that guy that bridged the generational gap. He wanted people to remember how great, Robert McGinnis was, how great Slick Leonard was as a coach, how awesome that 76 IU team was. He wanted people to remember that because a lot of times in our generation, we get engulfed with this is the greatest player that we've ever seen, but we don't remember, and I think about like, okay, in 30 years, we're going to be talking about how great Peyton Manning was, or we're going to be talking about how great, whether you like them or not, Michael Jordan, LeBron James were, because there's going to be somebody else. There's going to be somebody who people are going to say is the GOAT of all time. And Robin really bridged that gap. And when Robin wrote an article or when Robin went on a show, unlike a lot of other writers and contributors, you listened. Like you if you had to spend 5 minutes out of your day, you listened, or you went and read what he had to say.
Yeah.
Because he was witty, he was funny, he was ornery, and he literally was just going to, like you said, going to tell you how it was, whether it pissed you off or not. And at the end of the day, you're going to respect the guy more for giving the truth than a lot of some of these guys that are still out there that are kind of beat around the bush or part of the round.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Robin wasn't one of those guys that he didn't say it to say it. He said it because he felt it in his heart. That was his genuine opinion. And that's something that a lot of people stray away from this day and age in media or journalism or anything related to sports. They say what people want to hear because they're so concerned about what that radio station is going to think, or what that newspaper is going to think, or what that TV station is going to think. But Robin didn't do that. Robin made his own way because he said and stayed steadfast of the things that he was passionate about.
Well, and there's a lot of times you're afraid to piss off an organization because if you say something that they disagree with, then they're pissed and all of a sudden they're not giving you information or they cut you out. And like you said, Robin wasn't afraid of that. Robin was, would I think feel comfortable ripping, let's say, the Pacers and then walking into that locker room the next day. I think he thrived off that type of stuff.
Yeah.
There are stories about Jack Trudeau or some of these. I think it was Jack Trudeau where he had to be restrained from attacking Robin in the locker room because of something Robin said. And I think Robin was just like, look, if what I said was wrong or not the truth, then tell me. But this is what I feel is the truth. I trust my judgment and my opinion. So where was I wrong? And I think Robin would always have that perspective of, if I'm wrong or I've said something that is not right,
you don't have to.
Correct it. But don't be pissed off at me because I said something that is 100% factual. Whether you and if it makes you look bad or you disagree with it, that's my job as Robin Miller at the Indianapolis Star and have an opinion is to give how I feel with the facts that I've collected.
Who was that guy? He was a Colts player. He's an offensive lineman. Tony.
Siragusa?
No, not Goose. Not Goose. It was like I forget. He called him Turnstile Tony. It wasn't Goose. But he like ripped the shit out of him. And they said they need to get rid of him. Why don't they get rid of the GM, the owner, all that while they're at it? But then he would talk to Irsay afterwards, and they'd talk about it, and he would kind of make a case for why he was right, and I mean he wouldn't disrespect anybody, but he was that dude that just always, he always had great opinions and just whatever.
Yep. And like we talked about, him for racing because he was on Speed and Racer and ESPN2 RPM Tonight. But when you really think about and look back, I mean, one of these days is going to write a book about Robin Miller, and it's going to be a book that you're going to never stop laughing because there's going to be stories.
Should be you, man.
There's so many things that have either been told off the record or there was another story that I think Jake told today about him sneaking all of his buddies into a White Sox game up into the media center. They walked over and they said, Robin, and he's like, yeah, I know. He goes, we know you snuck all your buddies in here. And that's not a problem. We understand that. But, they tore down the media buffet and there's no food left for anybody else. So that's I mean, there's just so many stories of, Slick on an airplane and they're playing cards or, drivers walking in with another woman and knowing that their wife's at the same hotel, and they say, hey, Robin, can you walk in with this girl that's going back to my room because I don't want her to be seen with me, and then the next morning I'm seeing my wife. So, he also that guy that just kind of understood what was going on and gained the trust of all those players and drivers and coaches back in the day, which has always carried over.
I mean, that's the thing. He could call anybody. He could call Unser, Foyt, whoever he wanted, Andretti, 2-3 in the morning. They'll answer his call. They'll talk to him. I mean, he was just, he was just that guy. So, I mean, rest in peace, Robin Miller. Such a great guy. I mean, not only in Indianapolis. I mean, he's an Indianapolis icon, but in racing in general. So, I really appreciate that conversation, man. That was nice to hear some insights from you. I knew it would be, you'd have some stories to tell about him, and that was great. It's a sad day, but I want to talk about the Pacers. What do you think about the new pickup? I don't even know how to pronounce his name.
Giroux?
Giroux. How do you say?
Dave Giroux is the guy that out of Houston is a scorer. He lacks a little bit on the defensive end. I think he can play in the league. He needs to gain probably 15 to 20 pounds, which will obviously be pretty easy to do. When you've got nutritionists working with you, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Rowe's a guy that is almost like, for lack of a better term, like a poor man's TJ Warren. Like, this is the guy that can play. And he outshined Quentin Grimes at Houston in the tournament, who ended up being the 25th overall pick to the Knicks and averaged, I think, 22 points a game in the summer league this year. So Giroux's a guy that can play. He's fast. He can knock down shots, a little bit lacking on the defensive end, but I hope he gets a shot. I mean, I was a big follower of the Houston program last year, seeing them get all the way to the Final Four, went to a couple of their games while it was here during the tournament. So we'll see. I like Dejan Giroux. He's a great kid. Very well spoken, knows what's going on. It won't be a problem in the locker room. Let's just get some poundage on the dude and see if he can tear it up in Fort Wayne and then get him down to Indy.
What do you think? So there's been a lot of talks lately about Jeremy Lamb getting traded. Do you think he's going to get traded? What do you think is the best trade for him right now? Just give me some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were trying to trade him on draft night too, which is probably, as you know, when you have probably the most stock, in the offseason, you don't see too many trades early on in the season. You may see a couple here and there, guys you never heard of, but then it really picks up at the trade deadline. And, if he's riding the bench around the trade deadline, he totally doesn't have any trade value. So I think if you can ship him early in the season, maybe get him some run, maybe get him 18, 20 minutes a night, get him scoring, and then you see what you have on your end too. Maybe this is somebody that we keep. Maybe this is somebody that has proven. I don't think he's going to be able to get to that point. So, I mean, if you're trading him away a second-round pick and cash considerations, I don't think you're going to get a first-rounder for him. He's just been way too injury-prone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that with him. I was never a fan of signing him to begin with. For some reason, I've never been a fan of anyone, outside of Campbell Walker coming out of UConn.
That's just being biased.
And maybe that is being biased, I guess. But, name one that's come out of UConn that's really stood out. That's really been that multiple-time All-Star. That's been somebody that can get you over the hump or be a steadfast starter in the league.
Jim Calhoun is just a great coach.
He's a great coach.
UConn produces all the Ben Gordons you could ever ask for.
I swear to God, man, you were so right.
100% correct.
Or like saying, like, Ben was the sixth man of the year 1 year and could play, but I mean, you could say AJ Price, you could say Jeremy Lamb, you could say, I mean, this Booknight kid that just got drafted 8th overall. I mean, it's like, okay, is he going to be a superstar? Well, based on track history at UConn, more than likely, probably not. I mean, Duke's kind of the same way. It's kind of changed over the last couple of years. Obviously, Kyrie is a superstar, but what has always amazed me in the NBA is you think about the superstars that are in this league. Kevin Durant went to Texas. Not really the biggest basketball school.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing. Kawhi Leonard went to San Diego State. C.J. McCollum went to Lehigh.
Where did Westbrook go?
UCLA.
Westbrook went to UCLA.
UCLA, you're right, yeah.
But they weren't world beaters when he was at UCLA.
No,
But they weren't world beaters by any stretch of the imagination. You don't have to go to a major school to be a superstar. Obviously, Steph Curry went to Davidson. But there are schools that you look at and say, man, they have a good program. Pittsburgh's another one. They have these really, really fine tool players that just don't pan out in the NBA. I don't know what it is. If it's a coaching system, but UConn is definitely one of those.
I think Syracuse kind of fits into that category too. Outside of Carmelo Anthony, Syracuse, they always have
Rony Cycli,
a couple of really high end, almost lottery players, and they come out, they get drafted, and they don't do anything in the league.
Well, and Florida, the Gators are the same way. I mean, you think about, they won national championships with guys like Corey Brewer and Joakim Noah.
Yeah.
Mike Miller. But these were all just – I had this conversation last night with a buddy I went to college with. What people don't realize is there's like a tier of NBA superstars, and then a second tier, a third tier, and then that drop-off is just guys that I call it like just dudes. Just dudes that play, just the P.J. Tuckers of the world. The, Mo Harklesses of the world. Like guys that are in the league that are just dudes that you wouldn't even know about unless you were a hardcore NBA fan or NBA follower.
Well, it's like, remember back in, was it 2013 when Nerlens Noel got drafted? And, man, he kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And the camera's just focused on him the whole time. I remember this watching the draft. And he's turned out to be, like you said, a dude. He's not a 20 and 10 guy. He's a backup guy that doesn't do shit. It was from what, Kentucky? And he's just not he's not a star by any means.
I mean, you could go through every draft and look at the top 15 picks, and you could take probably 5 guys that were picked after the top 15 that if you were to redo that draft would probably be picked inside that top 15. And then on the flip side, you can look and say, oh, this guy was drafted. I mean, who was the dude? Shit, I don't even remember his name. He was drafted number 1 overall out of UNLV. Anthony Bennett. And like,
that was 2013.
What he make?
That was 2013.
2 years in the league and he's gone.
Yeah.
I know he got drafted by the Cavs, right?
Yeah, I mean, Darius Miles? You can go back to that 04. Guys that just they're almost overhyped, and you think, well, how could you be overhyped when you're about to be the number 1 or number 2 pick in the NBA draft?
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, remember Hasheem? Speaking of you, or is it Georgetown? Georgetown's another one of those schools.
Hasheem to beat.
Number 2. You know where he was last year? The Fort Wayne Mad Ants. There you go.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
remember when we picked up, who the hell was that we picked up a couple of, it was like 2017, 2018? The guy, God, I can't, I'm gonna lose my fucking shit now that I can't think of it. We traded for him. We traded for him with the trade with, God, it was like 2017, 2018. The trade with, I can't think of it.
Jesus, he's giving us nothing, Tony.
Sorry, I know. I'm literally blanking on the name. I'll know it as soon as I hear it. Give me a.
But going back to these storied programs in college, the Syracuse, even UNLV, or sometimes Duke is playing a part. Do you think it's coaching that's making these kids overachieve, or is it just the lack of talent that they're playing against at that time? Where do you see that?
I think in order to be live up to your potential, so to speak, when you're a top 15 draft, you have to come out of the school where you were coached well. Because look, everybody that's being picked in the top 15 was probably the go-to guy in college, right? And probably was the same in high school. But you get to the NBA, now all of a sudden you're the 7th or 8th guy. So how do you adjust your mindset to be that 7th or 8th guy? Jermaine O'Neal. I mean, remember he rode the bench in Portland.
Yeah.
How do you change your mindset that I'm no longer the guy? I need to be a team player and wait for my time. You got to be put in the right position. You got to be put in the right staff with the right players around you. Because if you don't have a leader in that locker room, take you under their wing in your first year where you think you should be the guy and you're not, you're going to fall off the map and end up disappointing not only the team and your fans but yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing that happened to Jermaine O'Neal coming here from Portland was to have a guy like Reggie Miller who was absolutely the locker room leader and the floor leader for all that. But he showed Jermaine O'Neal how to be a professional, and Jermaine was on the cusp of being one of those absolute NBA superstars, one of the faces of the NBA.
So I remember the name Andrew Bynum. That's who the hell it was.
Yep.
That's who I was thinking of. We traded for him, and he was a total fucking bust.
Yep.
We've had so many. What is it with the Pacers that they always trade for I wouldn't say buying them, but they a lot of times they trade for guys that are kind of past their prime, kind of on their way out. What is the deal with that? I've never understood that, and they always do it.
If you remember that trade, and I don't know if it was a trade. I think he was a free agent pickup.
He was a free agent pickup. You're right.
And in his first game, because this was like the downside of Roy Hibbert's career. Roy Hibbert's not where he once was.
Because Paul George banging his wife. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wife,
all the rumors, Andrew Bynum was getting his hair cut at halftime of the game, whatever it was. But what people don't remember is Andrew Bynum in his first game with the Pacers had like 21 and 15.
I don't remember that.
Like came in and absolutely was like a killer, and it was like, holy shit, this is what Roy Hibbert should be.
Yeah.
Because guys in the league like Andre Drummond, and there's guys in the league that, I think Hassan Whiteside was there, that come in and just eat Roy Hibbert for lunch, then Roy Hibbert can't score, right? And then Bynum got hurt, was getting his hair cut in the locker room at halftime. Whoever was screwing whoever, and just it all went to shit. But, the Pacers, guys like Tyreek Evans, guys like Monte Ellis, they take these risks hoping that these guys can resurrect their career because it worked with David West.
Right.
I think it worked with David West for a year or two. This guy was, he brought camaraderie to the locker room. He was a tough guy. He had been to the playoffs. He'd knock you on your ass.
But he was also a leader too. These guys aren't leaders.
Exactly, and I think that they thought, well, if that dude can come in and resurrect his career, Monte Ellis can, Tyreek can, Andrew Bynum can. I'm sure there's 2 or 3 other guys that were on the backside of the career that that the Pacers signed as well. You don't see a lot of guys leaving the Pacers to get a better contract somewhere else. You just don't see that often.
Right. Well, I mean,
maybe, but Lancel was only making $500,000.
Talk about Paul George. You talk about him.
Yeah, I mean,
he did the same thing as he did the same thing as Depot though.
Yeah, I mean they wanted out.
It was literally a mirror image of what happened with both of them.
Yeah, and the only way the Pacers are going to win the NBA championship is to be able to draft well, which they would rather finish 7th in the Eastern Conference standings, get smoked to the number 2 seed in 4 games, and then end up with the 17th or 18th overall pick, which doesn't get you better. Then say, all right, let's pull some of these guys, rest them, let our third and fourth string guys come in, play, lose some games, and all of a sudden we're in the lottery. That's just not the way the assignments operate. But they also don't want to go out and spend big money. Minneapolis, I think, is a great place to live, but we're not Miami, we're not LA, we're not New York, we're not even Philadelphia for that. So drafting somebody like Paul George and then him developing it into a superstar is the only way that this team's going to win. And how many people have they drafted over our lifetimes, the Pacers, that they drafted that stayed with the Pacers that became a bona fide superstar?
I mean,
and it's Reggie Miller.
I'm thinking Reggie. Right, yeah. And
I wouldn't even consider Danny Granger as a bona fide superstar.
No, he's not because, he got cut short. But, the Pacers need to start thinking like the Suns. Besides Chris Paul, basically they drafted well.
Yep.
You look at them. That's kind of the same blueprint the Pacers need to follow, and we're not doing that because the Simon that's still alive will not spend any fucking money, and it's been the same story for years and years and years. We both know that. When will they finally realize, hey, we might need to spend some money, bring in a guy that's
They don't want to pay another luxury tax. The Lakers will do it.
Yeah.
The Blazers will do it. But the Pacers simply don't want to pay another luxury tax.
Yeah.
And I don't think that ever changes under the Simons.
It's not going to change.
No, it won't. It'll never change with the Simon family and owning the team. It's unfortunate as fans, but that's where we stand.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sure.
Hey,
cool.
Man, it was great talking to you again. Join us again soon. Get me into the Folding Warehouse for free soon, and we'll talk again.
All right. Well, you hit me up whenever you guys want to come in, and we'll make sure that we have some fun.
Hey,
Sounds good, man.
I'll buy you a few beers, man.
All right, we'll have some fun. You guys will love it.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for joining us again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again, Tony. We appreciate it, buddy.
Guys, we'll do it again soon.
All
Have a
right,
good
take
one.
it easy, man. See you. All right, and
That was the one and only Tony Donahue.
Tony. He's so great, man. I love Tony. He just
We always seem to have a good conversation
we
with
have
Tony.
a great conversation
He's
with Tony.
He's a really good dude. He's so down to earth.
He really is, man. He's a cool guy. So that's I think that's gonna be the show for now. Sorry it ran so late, guys. I did not mean for it to go an hour and a half, but we had great guests tonight. We had Brendan King and we had Tony Donahue. We had a lot to talk about. So I apologize for how late it went, but anyways,
Make sure everybody stay tuned.
check out @_Michael Gigi on Twitter and
At Fisherman Chad 32 on Twitter.
all right, take it easy, guys.